Hi, I'm Graham and I'm here to talk about LabVIEW. This is a really exciting year for LabVIEW. With outside investment coming into NI, we've got an opportunity to focus on our core test and measurement technology, and LabVIEW is right at the center of that. We know it's also at the center of the success of all of our users. Now, LabVIEW is used from cars to trains to planes to washing machines, pacemakers. It's hard to go a day in your life without interacting with a product that trusts LabVIEW for its quality. And it's really been the foundation that the test and measurement industry has been built on for the last 20 years. But it's really the next 10 years that I'm most excited about for LabVIEW's journey. If you look at the world we live in today, the products that we're testing are getting way more complex, test coverages are going up. And yet, time to market pressure is everything, which means that productivity and the speed that engineers can work is king. And by the way, those engineers are working on smaller and smaller teams, so they're expected to do more. The innate benefits of LabVIEW, along with this reinvigoration and investment, mean that I'm truly excited about where we can go. And I do believe that LabVIEW engineers will have a significant advantage over their peers in the years to come because of their choice of tool. Now, of course, here at NI, we've then got to commit to support that tool and make sure that we're making investments to sustain that advantage. We're going to do them in three ways fundamentally. Firstly, LabVIEW must always meet the needs of your application. And that application is getting harder every year. With bigger test coverages, we need to make sure that we're bringing in the drivers and the IP into LabVIEW so it meets what you need it to do. Secondly, we know that you choose LabVIEW because it makes you quicker at what you do. We have to commit to building in productivity tools and enhancements into LabVIEW and the software in our portfolio that works with LabVIEW to ensure that the choice you made allows you to work more quickly. And thirdly, we know that you don't work alone. In order to use LabVIEW and choose LabVIEW, we need to build in functionality that allows you to work with your peers, share ideas with them, with your colleagues, with the community, and bring this together into a tool that allows you to collaborate. Now, over the next 20 minutes, my goal is to take you on a journey that gives you confidence that when you've made that choice in LabVIEW for your next project, it's a choice you have confidence in. We're going to do that by starting by looking at what LabVIEW is today, some of the new features. We're then going to introduce LabVIEW Plus, a suite of tools that complement LabVIEW and work together that we believe will add more value to your workflow. And then we're going to look to what LabVIEW will be in the future. What are the investment priorities of NI? What does the roadmap look like? And where will it take you? So let's start off at that first place by asking the fundamental question for anyone who hasn't used it of what is LabVIEW? And for this, I want to invite David on, who's going to give us a little demo, and we can talk through some of the functionality within it.
Hey,
morning, David.
Morning.
So let's start off. What is LabVIEW?
Yeah, so LabVIEW is a graphical programming environment that engineers use to develop automated research, validation, and production test systems. It's the classic line. And it's basically just a tool that engineers use to take measurements and automate the world around them, save data, and a lot more when building an automated test system.
Okay, so let's look at through. I mentioned three things, right? I mentioned the IP that we have in order for it to meet the tasks you need, how it makes you more productive, and how it allows you to collaborate. Let's take each of those three. Show us some functionality of what it actually does, and let's talk about what we've added to this to expand the capabilities of LabVIEW recently.
Yep, of course. So here I have pulled up a really simple data acquisition demo. Here in the studio, we have a small CDAC chassis with a thermocouple input module. And we're just going to be taking a quick measurement. As you mentioned, one of the things that LabVIEW continuously needs to do is get the job done. So making sure that engineers are able to acquire data, connect to instruments, and take measurements is super important. So we're always making sure that we have the latest drivers with newest hardware that's always coming out to take new measurements. That's one of the things that we're continuously investing in LabVIEW. So taking a measurement here is something that we're always interested in.
That sounds great. I know, as you say, there's a new instrument that comes out every day, it seems. When I talk to different engineers, they're always trying to do something unique And so building that in is important.
Yep.
Let's talk about productivity. You've showing us this demo of building something here, but what have you added to the user experience which allows us to do things more quickly?
Yeah, so LabVIEW's aim to accelerate productivity for engineers. That's what it's designed to do. And you can see from the simple program, it's really only 4 icons. Pretty simple. Didn't really take too long to build, to be quite honest. But we're always making sure that engineers can be more productive. And in our latest release of last year, 2023 Q3, we added some new productivity enhancements like zoom, right-click, double-click to finish, and I can show you them right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, you don't get away without a demo. Let's actually see these things.
So here, I'm going to go ahead and create a selection, and then I can hit Control Space, and my structures palette will pop up, and I can easily create a while loop right there. I'm going to go ahead, and as we've changed this to while loop, change this to a waveform, and then wire that in here to the output as well. And then when I start a wire, I can easily just double click and that'll automatically create a stop button, which is really nice and convenient. And this is a pretty small thing, but if I wanted to zoom in and out or make it bigger, as you know, this program isn't too large, I could do that right then and there. And then run the program just the same.
That's great. I've been coding in LabVIEW for 15 years now, and it's great to see every year these little enhancements actually make a real difference, just to make it easier, and a lot of them actually come from our community as ideas that we can then build into our program.
Yep.
Now, talking about community, we talked about collaboration, maybe with your peers. What have we added to LabVIEW over the last year which helps for that?
Yeah, so one of the big areas of investments that we had over the past few years has been in Python. So a few years ago, we introduced the Python node, which allows users to call in Python. And we've always kept up with each release, the most active version of Python. And then last year, we even added the ability to call into virtual environments. So you can have multiple Python sessions in your code, and it even gets us a little bit closer to the development workflow of a Python engineer.
Well, that's great. I know there's a lot of people using Python out there, and if you're a LabVIEW user, but you've got colleagues in other languages, it's great to be able to work with them and not compete with them.
Yeah.
What else have we got?
Yeah, so we also did a partnership with JKI to work on package-related workflows. So this really makes sure that you're able to better package your code, manage dependencies, and open and share code with your team members. Okay. So that's another big area.
That sounds great. Anything else?
And then as you mentioned, the community, we have a lot of community events like GDevCon. That's been going around worldwide. And we always have users that are sharing code, posting code, asking for help, responding. So it's another great way to connect with other LabVIEW users.
Oh, that's perfect. Hey, thank you so much, David, for coming on and just giving us this introduction. And especially on this community, I know there's been a lot of debate within that community about what is the direction of that. And I'll say that we're really committed to supporting this, both through the physical events and online. We believe that there's so much value in this peer community of great coders out there and test experts. And we want to make sure that we can support them and make them successful. Thanks for joining me.
Awesome. Thanks, Graham.
So we've seen what LabVIEW is. And LabVIEW has a lot of value, and I truly believe that graphical coding environment is the most productive way to build up test systems. But we also know that there are a lot of tools that NI has been building on and investing in that I think LabVIEW users would get value from. And so our strategy is not only to invest in LabVIEW, but to build out a suite of software tools that work together across an engineer's workflow, from the planning through the configuration, the building of a system, deploying of a system, managing that system. Together, this suite of tools should add extra value to an engineer or a test professional than you would get over purely LabVIEW. Now, to make this work, we have to firstly make them accessible. We have to sort out licensing that would allow and encourage the adoption of those tools across a team. And secondly, as I said, we have to have a roadmap that invests in the connectivity between these tools and helps them work together. Now, towards this end, I'm really pleased to introduce LabVIEW Plus Suite. This is a suite of software tools, some of which will be familiar to many of you who've used them, such as TestStand, been around for a long time. But it's really the first step in this connectivity of a workflow, meeting greater needs than LabVIEW could deliver by itself. Now, to have a look at some of these workflows and understand how it adds that value, I'd like to welcome David to talk first about electronics validation. So these engineers, you've got a data or a device, and you're trying to maximize your test coverage to learn as much as you can or characterize as completely as possible. How does LabVIEW Plus help you do that?
Yeah, so LabVIEW Plus, it provides a suite of tools, as you mentioned. So in this case, it provides you a set of tools for configuring your instrument, taking a measurement, and then analyzing your data. So it really gets you across that workflow.
Okay, what's the first tool?
Yeah, so the first tool that we're going to start with is Instrument Studio. So I have that set up here, and it's a very simple interactive environment that allows us to set up our instrument and configure our device. Here I have opened our oscilloscope, and all I had to do was just open it, and then here on the center, I can see the measurement itself, and on the right, I can see all the settings, so I can interactively configure and change things as I wanted to.
That's great. I'm a very visual person, so when I'm looking to set up tests like this, being able to see my signals and interact with them, I can see how this will make it much quicker to be able to understand what I need to do. Do I have a good signal? Am I setting this up correctly?
Yeah, and then so what's nice about this is that once I have everything set up, I can go ahead and export the driver configuration and save it to a file. And so now then I can open this up in LabVIEW and have that set up and called right here. So that way I don't need to do any of the configuration. I can just reuse what I did.
So what does LabVIEW have that Instrument Studio doesn't? Like, how does it expand along the workflow?
Yeah, so LabVIEW is going to be really great for automating a set of instruments. Instrument Studio is nice for viewing and configuring, but once you get into something more complex or large, LabVIEW is going to help you connect to a number of instruments, do any sort of decision making depending how your test system's running. But that's really what LabVIEW is going to be great for.
That sounds great. And I can see a common use case here in validation would be if you were running a sweep across multiple test vectors, LabVIEW would help you do that, add that decision making in. And you could even take it a step further with test stand, right?
Yes. And
so especially in semiconductor, I've seen quite complex automation sequences where you want to be able to control or manage those. So we've got Instrument Studio for configuring your setup, LabVIEW for then building up all those sweeps or those automation. Often in validation, the next step will be to share that data back with R&D or with other groups. What does that look like, and how does LabVIEW Plus help?
Yeah, so let me take this measurement really quickly. I never hit run. But here we can see our data. We've acquired it. We saved it to a file. That's great. Now we can go ahead and open this up in Diadem. And Diadem is our measurement data analytics tool. So we're able to view our data, analyze it, and create reports to share with our team members. So right here, I already have it indexing my documents file, and I can see the data right here. And now creating a chart in Excel can sometimes be a pain in the butt. But with Diadem, it can be just drag and drop. So if I drag the data that I loaded right there, I can go ahead and view it in seconds really quickly, and I can zoom out, whatever I wanted to, and it's really nice and neat. Then, going even further for sharing these findings, I can go ahead and create a report. That way I can just share it like you were mentioning.
This is fantastic. I mean, I know that this kind of data manipulation isn't always easy in tools that are general purpose. So it's really nice to be able to have one that is designed specifically for test and measurement. And so for this validation workflow, we've got Instrument Studio into LabVIEW and now into Diadem as well. Well, thank you so much, David, for sharing with that.
Awesome. Thanks, Ram.
And this hopefully shows the value that you can get from LabVIEW Plus, building on LabVIEW with some of these other tools into an ecosystem, but remaining with LabVIEW at its core. Now, for an electronics product, they're going to go from this validation we've discussed into production, to manufacturing. There's a whole different set of needs. To talk about how LabVIEW Plus adds value in an electronics production setting, I'd like to invite Grace to come up and show us the different tools and give us a demo.
Hi, Graham. Thanks for having me on today.
Now, I know in production, the engineers are going to be really focused on meeting those tight NPI schedules, despite the fact that their products are getting more complex. They've got more to do. They've got less time to do it. They've probably got less people on their team. There's a real productivity crunch here, as well as a test coverage challenge. How does LabVIEW Plus help with this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we can go ahead and start talking about the workflow and what that looks like. You know, it all starts with the measurement and the instruments that you're using. So that's where Instrument Studio comes into hand. Instrument Studio is just the software equivalent of the front panel that you would see on your box instruments. So it's a really easy way to get a quick start for your measurements, configure that, and then you can actually import those configurations into LabVIEW, so you can get started really quick.
I know that I'm a pretty visual person. If I'm setting up tests, actually being able to see and visualize that data is really helpful for me when I'm setting it up. That makes it so much quicker. My brain works that way. But as you say, that front panel of a box instrument isn't enough to actually build in automation. Often you need multiple instruments for a test step. Maybe there's some DUT control or some other communication you need to do. So show us how LabVIEW comes in.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So once you have your instrument configurations, you're likely going to have different tests, different measurements that you'll want to be running. And that's where LabVIEW comes into play, that you can start to automate some of these things and implement custom analyzation or things like that that you need. So for this example today, we'll be talking about a mobile device test. You know, there's a lot of things that you need to test. Devices are continuously getting more complex today. If you think about a mobile phone, there's a new release every year. Everything has to be tested. So you've got like RF that needs to be tested, audio, Bluetooth, power, battery, etc. So we're looking at the microphone input test today. We just want to do a frequency sweep from 20 to 20,000 hertz. And this is how we've set up our front panel in LabVIEW. So we can go ahead and run that. And you'll see how it plots that really quickly. And this is just a great way to get your measurements and see those results quickly. But like I mentioned, with a mobile phone, there's a lot of different tests that you're going to be needing to do. And so that's when you might look to a test executive or a test sequence to start organizing that. And that's where NI test stand comes into play.
And that's perfect, because we're talking today about LabVIEW Plus. So this is LabVIEW for your test steps, plus test stand for your sequencing and the automation of those tests. So let's have a look. What does test stand look like? Maybe you can talk us through the environment and how someone might use it.
Yeah, so this is test stand. Right here, you're going to see our sequence editor. This is where you can implement your test steps. Like you'll see here, we have a power on, battery, RF, audio. These blue boxes are just subsequences. So you'll see here, we have our microphone input test that we just showed in LabVIEW. And then over here on the left is our insertion palette. So you'll see here that you can make code modules in other programming languages. So teststand can implement LabVIEW, C, .NET, Python, which is really great for collaboration if you're working with other engineers.
A lot of test groups I know will have a library of test code or IP which they've built, and so this allows you to reuse and collaborate with your peers or across your organization. So.
Exactly. And then another thing on the insertion palette I wanted to point out is this flow control. So like normal programming languages, you can implement if-else statements, for loops, while loops, so that if you have a test fails, you can implement stuff like that.
So this looks great. There's a ton of functionality here. Some people may be saying, well, why could I not just do this in LabVIEW? I could build out some kind of sequence and walk through it. What's the advantage of test stand over just building it yourself?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So there's a few advantages. Test stand out of the box comes with some really powerful features. It has automatic report generation. You can log to databases. It has operator interfaces. Like we mentioned, you can implement other programming languages. All of that, which can be really hard to do in LabVIEW and also maintain over time, which is really important for production tests.
Oh, I know that maintenance is it's definitely a beast I hear a lot of people talk about. And that makes sense, right? Because as a test engineer, the value you add is anything where you're an expert in the product or in how to test that product. Not necessarily in reinventing the wheel over thousands of hours, just to add in something like auto-sequencing or parallel tests, which are kind of a pain to build into a sequence, but are already within test stand. So let's have a look at it running. What does it look like when you use it itself?
Yeah, so if we run this right here, you'll kind of see what the operator interface would look like. So you can implement a serial number, which is really great for traceability on large production floors. We'll just skip over that. And this is our mobile device that we're testing, and we're going to have everything pass. So you'll see our test sequence passed, and we automatically have a report that was built. So you can see here, this is all of our data that was collected from the report. You can customize this and put images in. You can see the graphs of the data that we implemented. There's a lot of functionality there. You can even make this a PDF or use HTML. So a lot of customizability.
That's fantastic. Well, Grace, thanks for joining us today and really showing us this sort of LabVIEW Plus workflow of Instrument Studio into LabVIEW into TestNet.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Graham.
So as I said, this production test workflow has 3 different products. You've got Instrument Studio for the configuration of those steps, or measurements, a LabVIEW for building out those individual test steps, and then TestStand is this powerful configuration-based tool which allows you to automate and build up more complex sequences. Now we've done we're going to move now from a more electronics product into a more electromechanical one. There's a slightly different set of needs and workflows here, where you've got physical measurements of thermocouples or vibration or test. Here you're often in a workshop or a lab. The data logging use case by test professionals is a slightly different setup to in an electronics use case. And so with this, I'm really pleased to invite Eric, our product manager for FlexLogger, to come and talk about some of these software. Now I know in these use cases, Eric, they're going to be working in a workshop or a garage or even a larger test cell. It's a very different environment to sort of the electronics lab or the manufacturing floor. Talk us through what is FlexLogger and what's it for?
Yeah, like you were just describing, FlexLogger is our companion software for electromechanical validation. It gives you a much higher level starting point, so you can complete a full test all the way from configuring your sensors, viewing your data, and visualizing it.
Let's have a look.
All right. So here I have a project already set up in FlexLogger. I've got my hardware already discovered. I'm just going to go through and configure a couple channels. So let's start with a thermocouple channel here. So I'm just going to configure that. And as you can see, FlexLogger has a bunch of defaults and already pre-configured, and it starts capturing data right away for you, so you can validate that signal and make sure everything's working the way you expect. Let's make a few more of those, because obviously we don't just want one channel. We want to scale it out to multiple systems. So just did a quick copy-paste there to make multiple channels. And let's mix it up. Let's add a couple different sensor types. So let's add some strain measurements in here as well. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to configure a couple just by copy-pasting. And there we go. We have a system ready to go, ready to start recording data.
That sounds great. Go on, let's look at the results. Can you get a graph, and how does this work?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So let's set up a couple live visualizations, and this will look pretty familiar to all our LabVIEW users. Very similar to a front panel. So let's put on a couple graphs here so we can visualize all our thermocouple data, start seeing all of that, and let's start getting some strain measurements in here too.
So what I really like about FlexLogger is this hardware-centric workflow, which starts from configuring your channels. That makes me think about I plug in my sensors or I mount my sensors, and then I'm immediately setting that up, bringing that up into the software. But so far what you've shown me you could do in LabVIEW. Why would you do it in FlexLogger and not just LabVIEW?
Right, yeah, you're absolutely right. You could do all of this in LabVIEW, but it's going to take time to program all of those systems, all of the components of your test system. This gives you a much higher level starting point. It's especially good for users who don't have programming experience as well.
That makes sense. Often these labs have a lot of technicians, a lot of other groups or engineers who are specialists in the product on the mechanical side, and they're not wanting to program or start from their software development every single time. But we're here to talk about LabVIEW Plus. So what are the occasions when you need to use FlexLogger plus LabVIEW?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'd say any time that FlexLogger out of the box doesn't have everything you need, that's where the extension point with LabVIEW works really, really well. So if there's some third-party hardware that you want to integrate into your system, there's some custom measurement and algorithm that you want to run, or even just communicating with the rest of your test system.
Go on, show us. We're here to see a demo.
All right, absolutely. So let's open it up. Here's just an example of a FlexLogger plugin. It has everything you need, the PDF, the manual, and it's broken down into all the steps that you need, already predefined and ready to go, so that you can just plug in the code for your custom measurement, your hardware, your communication. I'll just copy paste that code right into here. And once you're done, once it's built, you add it into FlexLogger like you would any other channel. So let's say I did this Rosette plugin, and I want to do a calculation on those strain channels that I added. I'm going to go through, configure all my strain measurements in here, get this last one in, and there we go. Just as if it was native to FlexLogger. I have a plugin ready to go.
So I love this. So as a test professional, I like to think of this almost as the analogy of a blacksmith shop. And when you come into a blacksmith shop, there's a few tools, but the master blacksmith or that professional will build new tools every day. And every time you build a tool, that's then there in the shop for others to use. And so everyone in that shop that has more and more capabilities as the professional builds the tools and adds them into the workshop. And so we've gathered some data, we've logged that, we've customized that and brought in some special tools, usually in a workflow for this sort of electromechanical validation. We're then sharing that back to R&D. And so what from LabVIEW Plus would I use for that?
Diadem would be the tool of choice for that. So let's log a little bit of data here. So we got all of our test system up and running. Let's record a couple seconds of data and show what that looks like. So here I'm just going to open up that file that we recorded, and Diadem will open up and help us visualize everything.
Fantastic. So you've got your building it up on your demo machine here. This is Diadem. So we can see the data we've used and then use that to compare with maybe previous data sets we've had, or even build reports, right?
Correct, yep. And with Diadem, it's really easy to inspect and visualize all that data. Just click and drag, build up all sorts of waveforms and graphs.
Fantastic. Okay, well, Eric, thank you so much for taking us through the LabVIEW Plus workflow for electromechanical validation. It's been great to see how FlexLogger, LabVIEW, and Diadem work together to make this workflow more productive. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've talked about LabVIEW Plus in these different workflows or personas. Now let's look a little bit, or talk a little bit more about how these are going to progress and what the future or the roadmap looks like for this LabVIEW Plus suite. Best person to do this, I'd like to welcome Eric Riffet, our Director of Product Management and working on LabVIEW for, decades at this point.
Decades.
Tell us, what does LabVIEW mean to you? Let's start there with the basics.
Sure, and you've just been showing some really great examples. LabVIEW, of course, is a graphical programming language. It's specifically designed to accelerate development in test and measurement systems. With over 30 years of experience, a lot of the tools that have built up over time, we have thousands, tens of thousands of instrument drivers online. We have this wide community of users that help each other with their development tasks. And it's the most productivity generating tool that you can use in test and measurement.
Okay, so in short, LabVIEW is awesome. Why LabVIEW Plus? What does LabVIEW Plus bring?
Yeah, and you've shown a lot of really great demos of what the idea is with LabVIEW Plus. So it's LabVIEW plus all of the other things that you want to be able to do. It's great. LabVIEW is awesome as a tool for being able to accelerate your development time. However, it's not advantageous to always start from ground zero and build an application to do everything. Sometimes you want a starting point that's a higher level starting point, things like test stand. You want pre-built test executives. You don't have to build and maintain them. But you can use everything that you've built in LabVIEW to plug into them. So it's LabVIEW plus all of the things that help you do test and measurement systems and build the workflows that you're constantly being challenged with.
Okay, so you said this word, workflows.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do we build on workflows? How do we connect these together? What advantage does that bring? And how does it, from an R&D perspective, how are we going to slot these different pieces of software into one thing?
Yeah, when you look at what we're doing with the roadmap for the products and how they're all designed around workflows, you get into three fundamental areas of LabVIEW. The first one is just what you can do from a productivity development time. So when you're looking at the LabVIEW Plus suite, it's how we augment the system. In the past, we've used things like test stand has always been there as a customized test executive. And we're going forward, we've added more things to that suite. You just saw some demos on FlexLogger, demos on Instrument Studio, and these are all productivity enhancing tools that you can augment your LabVIEW development with. So that's one area of workflows where you don't always want to build everything from ground zero. Another area is on the technical innovation. In the past, when LabVIEW introduced things like LabVIEW Real-Time and LabVIEW FPGAs, we were looking to push some of your development tasks into the hardware when you need that tight control or you need the better memory optimizations. And going forward in the future, we're also looking for other types of technology innovations, such as generative AI, which can help you do a lot of different tasks, not just your programming tasks, but how you coordinate all of the items in your workflow. And then the last piece is your community. I've mentioned this idea of how broad and how skilled your community is. And we need to look forward into how we engage better with the community, how we work together collaboratively to develop customer solutions. And they give us tons of feedback that we then use as ways of further enhancing the tools that we make to make them even more productive for all of the workflows that they're building.
I love this. So this comes back to those 3 points I mentioned right at the start. I mean, LabVIEW and LabVIEW Plus must always meet the needs of your application. It's got to make you more productive. We've got to have tools around that. And then it's got to make you work as part of a team, whether that be with your peers or with the wider community. There's a lot of things going on this year. I mean, 2024 is going to be a really interesting year to be working in an engineering environment. There's new technologies. You mentioned generative AI. There's also challenges out there. How do those opportunities and technologies and then challenges affect the roadmap? And give us some idea of some projects maybe you're excited about which are building on those external factors.
Yeah, great. So let's start with some of the things that I think are really exciting. I did mention the generative AI. Generative AI is going to be one of those technologies like the internet was. It's built up a lot of steam, it has a lot of potential, and I think you're going to start seeing it become very commonplace and all the ways that you can use it. So generative AI for LabVIEW and LabVIEW Plus, it can help you generate code. We showed demos of that last year at NI Connect 2023 of like early prototypes of what that experience could be like. But the more exciting piece is how that can augment things in LabVIEW Plus, where it actually helps you connect all of the different workflows together and help you build more of the system level technology. So I'm really excited about the future for generative AI. Now, the next thing you mentioned was kind of the challenges. And I think 2023 showed us a lot of the challenges are going to be around cybersecurity. If you look at news reports and government changes, you just see all of this news about how cybersecurity is on the rise, cyber criminals are more active, and the ability to build in that type of security to your networks is going to take a couple of things. One, it takes work on the product team side, so we've obviously spent a lot of time putting security into our products. Two, it takes collaboration for how people use your tools. They have to use them in secure ways, so we got to get better as a whole of building good secure applications. And then three, it takes collaboration between private entities and the government agencies, and as they change their laws and make things designed to be more secure, we all have to work together to build a good secure network. The last thing that you asked about, like things that I'm interested in, you know, I've worked in the LabVIEW industry for almost 25 years, and I've seen a lot of really cool applications, but for today, I'm going to talk about one that occurred recently. One of the design teams that works at SpaceX posted in LinkedIn, they were looking for new LabVIEW developers to come join their team, and they posted this cool picture. They posted a set of pictures that showed all the different places where LabVIEW is being used as a way of attracting people to come and work for them on these projects. And it wasn't just the rocket and the test system, it was like the ground control software and the launch pad and the recovery mechanism. It was everywhere. And that was their point of like, if you want to work in space, come and work with us.
Yeah, I remember seeing that picture, and there's like the mission control, this huge screen, which was a LabVIEW front panel. And I think that shows to me that like LabVIEW it's used in so many cool applications. It's being used whether it be in space, whether it be in automotive, whether it be in semiconductors, whether it be in the medical industry, which I focus on quite a lot. There are so many exciting applications right now and today that LabVIEW is being used for. And I'm really excited when we do talk about some of these future technologies, whether it be generative AI, whether it be security, whether it be collaboration and new tools and connecting all of these pieces of software. I really believe that the next years will be the most exciting years that LabVIEW has ever had in its history. And I'm glad you're defining and building that, you and the team. So,
yeah, we're like you said, we're really excited about what's in store for the future.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us.
Yep, no problem.
Thanks, Eric.
Yep.
Well, that was exciting. I'm really pleased that today we could show you all of the things stemming from what LabVIEW is and the new features that are released within the development environment, into introducing LabVIEW Plus, this connected suite of software tools that add value throughout the workflow if you're a test professional. And then look a little bit just now with Eric about the future of LabVIEW and where it's going. If you want to learn any more about all of these, and especially about LabVIEW Plus, then go to our website, ni.com/LabVIEW, and follow the links. There's a ton of information there and some good videos about how you can get more out of LabVIEW by using these different software products. Thanks for joining us today.